And we have one more final segment we wanted to get through, which is about structuring emerging companies through the Cayman Islands. So please joining me on stage are Richard Munden and Michael Patterin, two of the partners from Walkers. Walkers is a leading international law firm that provides legal, corporate, and fiduciary services to global corporations, financial institutions, capital markets, participants, and investment fund managers. So we want to spend a few minutes in hearing some of their thoughts on, and potentially for some of you, thinking about structuring an emerging business here in Cayman. So let's start with Richard. Richard?
Yeah, hi Matt, and hello to everybody at the conference. I feel I'm in my natural territory here between the excitement of the film fest and then the fun on the catamaran. It's exactly where the lawyers like to pitch themselves to sort of slow down everybody's day.
Nothing like an attorney between a catamaran and a film festival. So, Michael.
Thanks for having me today. I echo Richard's thoughts. I think we'll just try and get through this quickly, but hopefully provide as much education as we can about the reasons why you might want to structure your business through the Cayman Islands and some of the key reasons why you might want to do that without, of course, holding you up from the catamaran trip. So, thank you.
Well, Michael, let's start there. Like, what are some of the primary reasons you see clients choosing Cayman versus an alternative, say, Delaware or even California?
Matt, let me take that, because I think we could almost say what he said. At the top of the conference, the IMA told us that they had, if I understood correctly, set up a business here to deal with non-US source revenues. And, you know, that really is, in our experience, one of the key reasons that we see our North American client base coming and talking to us about setting up businesses here in the Cayman Islands. Yeah. And that is where they are generating income from, be it their internet activities or, you know, other products, other services outside North America. They often look at doing that through a vehicle that is incorporated in a jurisdiction that is not America. And then where that takes us is, I think, the discussion of what is that, or where should that foreign jurisdiction be? And then you delve down and you begin to think about what is the competitive advantage of the Cayman Islands compared to some of the other jurisdictions that could possibly offer, you know, some of the components that Cayman offers.
And certainly technology is well represented here today, but certainly there's other sectors that would consider Cayman, obviously financial being one. What are some of the other sectors that you've seen growing in their interest here in Cayman?
We see a hugely broad spread of different sectors here. I guess the main reason is that the Cayman Islands is a great platform for any sort of business that that's aiming for international investors or has assets or revenues which are sourced internationally. So pretty relevant to this audience, we have seen a really growing use in the fintech space. We've done a lot of work with different fintech providers setting up here in setting up operations through Cayman. Retail business has really grown exponentially over the last sort of 5 or 10 years. We've done a huge amount of work with online retailers, particularly China-based online retailers, which has been huge. Healthcare as well, we've seen a great growth in healthcare companies. And all these different types of sectors I'm mentioning, we see it from two angles, both from investors, sort of venture capital funds looking to set up funds to invest into companies, but also founders of companies looking to set up to, you know, streamline their business operations and the outcomes of those operations.
Yeah, and in fact, Matt, if I could just add a couple of things. The previous panel focused on businesses that would look to use the Cayman Islands with having a physical presence here and deploying a workforce here. You know, what we see in our practice is that we will have some businesses that go that route, but also there's a large number of businesses that don't set up physically here in the Cayman Islands, but instead they will have a subsidiary within their business that, as I say, will be developing the international revenue lines within their business. So there's the physical presence, non-physical presence. And as I headed over here earlier, I was thinking a little bit about the sectors as well. And I'd sort of add to what Mike was saying to give the audience a little bit of a sense of the diversity that we see. Within the last 24 months or so, I've seen ultra-luxury hotel chains using Cayman joint venture vehicles, an enterprise for developing drinking water infrastructure in the developing world, an enterprise for internet penetration in the developing world, so a theme we heard earlier about the importance of growing internet penetration globally. I've also seen microfinance business into Africa run through a Cayman platform, and finally waste-to-energy projects for Asia. And then a few American businesses taking established products from the American market that do not have a footprint in Asia, predominantly China, and using a Cayman subsidiary to then take that product into China and route the revenues out of China through the Cayman vehicle rather than directly into the US.
And certainly multinational corporations attractive here. Certainly startups could be attractive as well. And one of the considerations for startup, both for the founders and the investors, is what's a potential exit strategy? So how would you speak to that for someone who may start a business here in Cayman?
Okay, yeah, it's probably trite to say that whenever we work with a founder on setting up their business, generally they'll have one eye to the exit. So there's some really important factors to take into consideration here. I think importantly is the corporate framework here in Cayman is extremely flexible. We have a number of different types of sort of processes or procedures within the law for the acquisition of Cayman companies. I think most importantly amongst them is our merger statute, which is very, very similar to the merger statute you have in Delaware. So since that was introduced back in about 2010, we've seen huge numbers, probably in the triple figures, of take-private transactions of listed companies in the US and elsewhere being taken private using that merger statute. So that's a really important exit mechanism which we've been seeing over the last couple of years. In addition to that, we have the scheme of arrangement, which is an old common law method of acquiring a company. The beauty of the scheme arrangement is that provided you get the requisite majorities of shareholders and the court sanctions it, then the shareholders are bound to go along with the deal and they'll get their shares acquired. And there's no dissent rights whereby the shareholders can petition a court to challenge the process. So that provides a great deal of certainty in corporate transactions here in Cayman. Probably lastly, we should also mention the IPO market. Cayman companies are now used as a listing vehicle on some of the major exchanges across the world. We see Cayman companies on the major US exchanges, New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, London Stock Exchange. More so in Asia, though, we see Cayman companies represent about 40% of the companies listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. So particularly where we're working with clients whose businesses are structured in the PRC or through Hong Kong, Cayman companies are extremely popular for that reason. They provide a great vehicle for the IPO exit.
So I would imagine after tonight's dinner, following the catamaran excursion, and tomorrow's event, we might have some business leaders here that say, yeah, I'm going to go set up in Cayman. So what would be some of your recommendations or thoughts, considerations around how a company would go about setting up here in Cayman?
I think first and foremost, if we sort of split the prospective companies that look at that between, say, an existing company with a business, let's say, in North America and a startup. Let's go to that first group. I think that first group, there's a sizable bit of due diligence that needs to be done. So if we start from the basis, as we see with many of our clients, that the reason for setting up an offshore subsidiary is, as I say, for a fiscal benefit, for revenues generated outside of North America, then of course, they're going to need to sit down with their tax advisors and work that through. There's two sides to that. One, of course, is I think that they can realize the fiscal benefits that they think they can. Part of that goes obviously with the ownership structure of the offshore subsidiary. The second side to that is looking at the target markets where they're going to be generating these revenues, because there's always the scope for there to be withholding taxes or other sort of deductions or levies imposed from those jurisdictions. So they need to do the due diligence on the tax side to make sure the fiscal benefits are going to be realized, having regard to the growth plan of the business. Steve mentioned on the previous panel, the big four accountancy firms are present in the Cayman Islands. I would imagine most of the businesses that we're talking about will have the relationships with the big four firm. They can get all the advice there. Once that due diligence is done, then again we have another fork in the road. Is it going to be a physical presence in the Cayman Islands? If it is, the speed of establishment that the previous panel spoke to is really premised on starting an enterprise within the Cayman Enterprise City under the Special Economic Zone law. That can be done rapidly. I should mention only certain qualifying industries can go into that special enterprise zone at the moment, but if you're within that, I say it's very, very rapid. And if you're going down the other fork where you're not setting up a business in the Cayman Islands, then after the due diligence process has been done on the fiscal benefit being achieved, really I think what you're looking at is working out the type of vehicle that should be used, and in that you're really going to have regard to what people, what investors require, what control they require. Often we hear people saying, well, we're used to seeing in America an LLC, or we're used to seeing, say, a partnership. One of the great things about the Cayman Islands is that we have these legal entities that mimic, or can be made to mimic, what North American business founders and investors are used to seeing. In the future, we'll also have an LLC vehicle as well, again, very, very familiar to North American investors. Once those decisions have been made, it's really just a question of speaking to local service providers. And, you know, we can move very, very quickly. Hillary mentioned earlier the digitization, sorry, not Hillary, I think it was the lady from the BRAC, yeah, that's it, right. So she mentioned everything digitized. I mean, we can set up a company here in the same business day if we have the information. We can register a partnership in the same business day if we have the information. So the startup, once the due diligence has been done, can be achieved very, very rapidly.
Excellent. Well, certainly a lot of attractive options here for businesses looking to be here. Want to thank you both for sharing information, and appreciate all of your attention here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our program at the Ritz.